Discover the amazing truth at 60, Carl Jung exposes the heartwarming soul transformation. The town buzzed with the sweet scent of kettle corn and fresh oil, but Joe Thompson felt heavy. At 60, standing at his family-run garage, the weight of the years pressed hard on his shoulders. A lifetime spent fixing cars, yet as the Harvest Festival approached, he found himself drowning in envy as he watched families gather, laughing and sharing stories. Nearby, the children raced around, their laughter like music, a painful reminder of what he didn't have his estranged daughter, Emily. In the heart of this small Midwestern town, week after week, Joe poured sweat and heart into his work. The clanging of tools blended with distant chatter, creating a symphony of community, yet the pride from that work had begun to fray. Sure, he had mended engines, but had he healed the rift between him and Emily? The idea gnawed at him, intensifying as he prepared for the festivity. Now, his life felt like a dull patchwork, unworthy among others who seemed to thrive against the tough backdrop of economic hardship. Just then, amid the festival's clamor, a familiar face stepped into view. Emily returned, not the radiant daughter he remembered, but a woman dulled by the city's hard realities. Her eyes were cast down, like shadows of former dreams, and his heart twisted in his chest. Standing among the crowd, they exchanged brief pleasantries that felt like ice. Years of unshared words and hurt hung in the air, thick as the fog before dawn. As laughter filled the festival grounds, Joe felt his resolve crack. Stiff and awkward, he watched as smiles lit up faces around him, each moment amplifying his sense of isolation. Emily's laughter floated over to him, a sweet sound that felt foreign and distant. Would they ever bridge this chasm of hurt? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The tension reached a boiling point as music pulsed through the air, summoning Joe to the main stage where bustling townsfolk gathered. His heart raced, mind swirling with words unsaid. Finally, it was there, overwhelmed by the blaring joy around them. Joe approached Emily. Old wounds erupted as they faced each other, accusations spilling out. He hadn't supported her dreams, she hadn't understood his sacrifices. Do you ever think about us? Joe shouted amid festival noise, eyes hard as glass. The crowd hushed, all eyes shifting to the poignant standoff. I was always there for you. But it felt like he was talking to a ghost. The Emily he remembered was trapped beneath layers of bitterness, her retreat cut through him like a knife. The laughter around him faded into a haunting silence as Joe sank into despair. Alone, he wandered to the attic that night, heart heavy with despair. That's when the dusty journal caught his eye. His father's. Flipping through those pages revealed struggles mirroring his own. The realization struck him. His father, too, faced hardship, and it was the pursuit of dignity that kept him anchored. As the festival reached its end, Joe felt a surge of purpose swell within him. The lights twinkled as he summoned the courage to share. Could he connect the bonds of father and daughter? Could their wounded hearts find a way to heal? The answer lay ahead, yet as he glanced toward Emily in the crowd, a flicker of hope ignited. Could the truth he discovered give them a chance? Or would silence continue to overshadow their lives, leaving love unspoken? The night was thick with unresolved tension as Joe stared out the attic window, the cool air carrying whispers of laughter and music from the festival below. The light sparkled like distant stars, mocking his solitude. He turned the pages of his father's journal, absorbed in stories of hardship and persistence. Each word felt like a lifeline, and he realized his father had wrestled with the very emotions choking him now: regret, longing, and an unyielding desire for connection. With renewed determination, he made his way downstairs, the stairs creaking beneath his weight. Every step echoed the thought of reaching out to Emily. Maybe he couldn't rewrite the past, but perhaps he could mend the present. As he stepped outside, the festival lights illuminated his goal. He had to find her. His heart raced as he navigated through the crowd, couples and families mingling, sharing warm smiles. Each laugh he heard felt like a dagger, yet he pressed on, searching the sea of faces until finally, he caught a glimpse of her Emily, standing alone by a food stall, her face half hidden in shadow. "Emily!" Joe called, his voice heavy with emotion, and she turned slowly, surprise flickering in her eyes. The knot in his stomach twisted tighter. Would she recoil? Would she even listen? "Dad," she said softly, her voice almost lost to the bustle around them. Yet it felt like thunder in his ears. "Can we talk?" he asked, the words tasting bittersweet. The slight shift in her expression told him everything. She wanted to say yes, but something held her back, a wall stacked high with years of hurt and silence. After a moment that stretched awkwardly between them, she nodded. "Okay." They found a quieter corner, away from the jubilant chaos. For the first time in a long while, father and daughter stood face to face, the air thick with unspoken words. "I'm sorry for everything, for not being there when you needed me," he started, the ache of his heart slipping through every syllable. "I thought I was protecting you, pushing you to follow a safe path, but I see now I was just scared. And I didn't see you at all." Tears brimmed in Emily's eyes. "You didn't understand what I wanted. I felt like I had to fight for your approval, but I also needed to find my own way." The truth hung heavy between them, raw and unfiltered. Joe reached for her hand, but she hesitated, pulling back slightly. "I never wanted to hurt you," he continued, his voice faltering. "But I've realized that I spent so long focusing on my own regrets that I didn't see how much you needed me to believe in you." Emily inhaled deeply, the weight of her childhood surfacing. "And I needed you to encourage me instead of shutting me down. All those years, I felt like I was a disappointment." Joe felt his heart fracture. "You were never a disappointment. I was too blind to see your strength." A silence enveloped them. The distant music from the festival felt like a world away. Joe searched her eyes, longing to connect but uncertain if it was too late. The years lost swirled around them, thick as the autumn air. "Do you think we can start over?" he finally asked, voice quivering. Emily hesitated, emotions battling behind her gaze, hurt, hope, and the remnants of love. "I want that, but it won't be easy." And there it was, the fragile thread of possibility beginning to weave itself anew. They both knew it would take patience and effort. Yet the flicker of hope that had ignited inside Joe felt warm, almost like sunshine breaking through clouds. But just as they began to step closer, a loud cheer erupted from the center of the festival, abruptly pulling their focus. The town was gathering for something big, a contest, or perhaps a surprise performance. In that moment, life surged forward again, reminding Joe of the unpredictable essence of their shared journey. "Let's go see what that is," he suggested, taking the first brave step toward bridging the gap between them. Emily glanced up at him, her brow furrowing with something new curiosity. "Okay." As they did, part of Joe felt that perhaps, perhaps, this was a sign. Could this festivity mark a new beginning? But the real question echoed in the back of his mind: what if this moment turned everything for them? What if it didn't? As they made their way through the crowd, the glimmer of lights danced in Emily's eyes, competing with the stars above. Each laugh and shout, once a reminder of their disconnect, now felt like a pulse of life, drawing them into its rhythm. Joe felt a shiver of excitement mixed with anxiety. It was a step forward, a fragile bridge forming between them. "What do you think it is?" Emily asked, her voice brightening with intrigue. "Maybe a dance or a talent show," Joe replied, trying to mask his nervous energy with lightheartedness. They pushed past the throngs of festival-goers, the scent of caramel corn and roasted nuts filling the air, nearly lost in the joy flowing around them. It was intoxicating. Joe's heart raced for a different reason now. the weight of their previous conversation lingering like a tender reminder behind the excitement. As they approached the center, they spotted a makeshift stage set up near the fountain. The crowd swelled, and people were cheering, eyes bright and hopeful. A local band was setting up, instruments glinting under the lights, the drummer already tapping out a rhythm that resonated like a heartbeat. Emily nudged him playfully. "I hope they don't play some cheesy cover. I like original artists. Don't count it out." "Sometimes the best songs are the simplest," Joe said, and she chuckled in return. Their laughter faded as the band started playing a lively song, one that made the whole crowd sway together. The energy crackled in the air, igniting an urge to dance. Joe couldn't help but sway along a notion he hadn't felt in years. He caught Emily watching him, a flicker of affection breaking through her guarded expression. "Come on, let us dance," he encouraged, holding out his hand. His heart thudded in his chest, a mix of nostalgia and hope. It was a pivotal moment, a chance for joy. Emily stared at his hand, widening her eyes as she seemed to weigh the risk. But after what felt like an eternity, she placed her hand in his, a small gesture that felt monumental, like a thread of trust weaving itself between them. Once more, they made their way to the edge of the pool, the ripples catching the reflections of the lights above. As they danced, their bodies moved to the beat, and laughter bubbled up between them, breaking the last barriers. Emily wrapped her arms around his shoulder, and for the first time in ages, Joe felt the warmth of closeness, a breath of fresh air after years spent suffocating in silence. The beat dropped, the music thrumming through their bodies like a live wire, and Joe instinctively spun her around. She giggled, momentarily losing herself in the movement. But in that moment of joy, a pang of anxiety washed over him. Was this illusion real? Would the night end with old hurts resurrecting themselves? Just then, he noticed an older couple sharing a dance nearby. Their gentle exchanges, the way they leaned into each other and the smiles they shared, tugged at something deep within him. Could he and Emily reach that level of connection? As the song reached its crescendo, Emily pulled back slightly, their eyes locking. The world around them blurred, and all he could see were her trusting eyes shining bright in the festival lights. "Joe," she whispered, a hint of seriousness breaking through the carefree air around them. "Yeah?" he asked, fear creeping back. "About starting over, what does that mean to you?" Her words lingered, a question filled with potential but also uncertainty. The rhythm of the moment shifted, the joy now clashed with the enormity of what they were attempting. As the music faded and the crowd began to quieten, Joe felt the weight of her question settle like a stone in his stomach. What did starting over mean? Was it just the warmth of the dance, or did it reach deeper, into the tangled mix of their past? He opened his mouth to respond, grappling for the right words, but before he could speak, another cheer erupted, drawing their focus once again. Behind them, someone had taken the stage, and the crowd was shifting. Tension tightened around them, each heartbeat imbued with urgency. "Let us see what's happening," he suggested, forcing a confident smile, though the uncertainty gnawed at him. Emily nodded, pulling him toward the front. The night's potential, bright and dazzling, hung in the air like a fragile promise. But as Joe led her through the crowd, the question loomed larger than the festival lights: could they truly find their way back to each other? The crowd surged ahead, the excitement palpable as people leaned in to catch a glimpse of the stage. Joe felt a mix of anticipation and dread. What could this new performance bring? What would it uncover in him and Emily? He stole a glance at her, her expression a blend of curiosity and hope. They squeezed closer to the front. The chatter of the crowd faded into a buzz, and the next performance began. A singer stepped up, guitar in hand, and as the first notes rang out, Joe's heart skipped. The song was a haunting ballad, filled with longing and redemption. It felt like a reflection of his own heart, a melody that spoke of finding oneself again, of healing wounds. Emily swayed softly to the music, her eyes glistening with unspoken emotions. Joe's mind raced back to their past, a tapestry woven with laughter, tears, and heartache. His pulse quickened as he knew that this moment was a crossroads. Isn't this beautiful? Emily leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. It wasn't just the music, it was everything: the nostalgic longing, the human connection, the chance to be real again. Yeah, he replied, sincere, it really is. Before he knew it, she took his hand again, fingers interlaced. It was an electric touch, a small but mighty reminder of their bond. The world around them melted away. All that existed was the melody and the hope that clung to it, wrapping around them like an embrace. Yet, behind that embrace, a whisper lingered, haunting and unresolved. Joe, she suddenly spoke, drawing him back from the music, her face earnest. If this is starting over, how do we know it's different this time? His heart raced at the vulnerability in her words. It wasn't merely a question, it was a plea. She was reaching for certainty in the uncertainty that had defined their relationship for too long. He took a deep breath, the weight of her query hanging between them like an unsung note. I guess we don't know, he answered finally, feeling raw and exposed. But maybe it's the act of trying that matters. Maybe starting over isn't about having all the answers, but being willing to find them together. Her gaze softened, and he saw the flicker of hope ignite a spark within her. She squeezed his hand tighter, anchoring them both amid the chaos around them. The music built to a crescendo, echoing their rising emotions. It was a catalyzing moment, both freeing and terrifying, a release of pent-up fears and desires. As the final chord rang out, the crowd erupted into cheers, but Joe and Emily stood frozen, lost in a world that was just the two of them. Was it a chance worth taking? Could vulnerability be their saving grace? Just then, the MC of the festival announced a surprise event, a chance for anyone to share their story on stage. Joe's breath caught in his throat. This was it. Could they publicly confront their fears? Could they turn this moment into a testament of their journey? Should we? He asked Emily, uncertainty clouding his voice. Should we? She echoed, looking back toward the stage, the chaos of the festival swirling around them, yet they stood still, torn between the past and the future. As the crowd began to move, something clicked in her expression. If we're going to start over, maybe we should do it right. Her words lingered, filled with a challenge he couldn't resist. The path to rebuilding their relationship lay ahead, and it was time to step forward. But could they truly open up, share their truths on that stage, and move from shadows into the light? The festival lights twinkled as if holding their breath, waiting along with them for the next chapter of their story to unfold. What awaited them when they stepped into that spotlight? With the spotlight beckoning, Joe could feel a heat rising in his cheeks. Time seemed to suspend as he and Emily exchanged glances, both weighing the magnitude of what they were considering. The noise of the festival softened to a distant murmur, and all he could focus on was the girl beside him, the girl whose hand he hoped to clasp tightly in both their journeys forward. Emily, he said, feeling the words weave together his thoughts, what if we open up and it doesn't go the way we hope? What if we bare our souls and it just makes things worse? He felt the weight of vulnerability loom above him, casting a shadow of fear over his heart, but her eyes sparkled, reflecting the vibrant lights of the festival. What if it does go right? What if this is the moment we both need? We owe it to ourselves to find out. He could see the direction she was headed, the faith she clung to in a world where they had often stumbled in darkness. You're right, he said, his voice steadier now. If we're going to do this, we have to mean it, no holding back. They made their way through the crowd, every step feeling more monumental than the last. Each face turned toward the stage reminded him of the countless ones they had hid from in their past. But this wasn't about hiding anymore, this was about transforming together, step by bold step. When they reached the front, the MC held up the microphone, his smile warm and inviting. Who's ready to share their story? He called, his loud voice cutting through the light-hearted festival atmosphere. Joe felt his heart racing. The crowd cheered, and he turned to Emily, her expression a mask of hope and fear all at once. I'm scared, he admitted softly, fighting the tremor in his hands. Me too, she smiled back, a spark of mischief lighting up her eyes. But scared is better than nothing. We can do this. Before he could reconsider, she nudged him forward, where the energy of the crowd pulsated. With a deep breath, they stepped onto the stage, the lights pouring over them like warm sunshine, illuminating the raw truth of their hearts. Joe looked out at the sea of faces. Waves of anticipation washed over him. We're here to share our story," he started, his heart in his throat as he fumbled to find the right words. Emily took a step closer, her hand still clasped in his, grounding him. "It's messy and complicated," she said, her voice stronger than his, "but we think it can inspire others, and that's why we're here." As they began to talk, a flow of emotions flooded through them. They shared their struggles, the miscommunication, the distance that had grown over time, the pain of letting each other down. But they also spoke of rediscovered laughter, the moments that made their hearts dance, and how the spark of hope still flickered in the dark. Joe noticed the eyes of the audience locked onto them, some nodding in understanding, others visibly moved. They were not just sharing their story, they were painting a picture of resilience and the beauty of vulnerability. With each word, Joe felt lighter, as if shackles that bound him to the past were dissolving. Their truth was resonating, not just with them but with everyone present. Then, there was a moment of silence that wrapped around them like a warm blanket. Emily took a deep breath. "We're done running from the truths we need to face," she declared boldly, her voice echoing over the crowd. "We want to build something real, together, from this moment on." Suddenly, the crowd erupted in applause, a wave of support sweeping over them. Joe turned and smiled at Emily, exhilaration flooding his chest. They had taken the leap. But as they stepped off stage, he realized they were now stepping into a world of revelations. Was this truly a beginning? Or simply a step into deeper challenges ahead? As the applause echoed in his ears, Joe felt an unsettling shift within. The ripple effects of their honesty had just begun. What awaited them now, beyond the spotlight and the warmth of applause? The sound of the applause lingered in the air, and Joe felt a rush of adrenaline. This moment felt monumental, yet as they stepped away from the lights, a knot of uncertainty tightened in his stomach. The bright festival atmosphere, once so welcoming, now felt like a maze of expectations and questions. Did we really just do that? Emily's voice was full of awe, mixed with disbelief. She squeezed his hand lightly, keeping their connection alive. Joe started to respond, but his words caught in his throat. How could he wrap his mind around what they had just shared? He turned to look back at the crowd, still buzzing with excitement. He could see new faces shining with inspiration, yet he wondered about the deeper truths that lay beneath that applause. "Yeah, we did," Joe finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But what now?" He searched Emily's face for guidance, yearning for understanding in the aftermath. She looked around, her eyes flitting over the bobbing heads of festival-goers. "Now people know us. They know our story. I think that changes everything." Her voice trembled, reflecting her vulnerability. Suddenly, a wave of people surged past them, lost in their own celebrations, while Joe stood rooted in place. It was like watching a river flow around a stubborn boulder. He began to feel the weight of exposure. Secrets laid bare. He realized that each revelation would ripple out, affecting not just him and Emily, but their families, their friends, people they barely knew. What if they don't understand? Joe's voice had turned serious. Memories of judgment and harsh words flared in his mind, moments that had left scars too deep to ignore. Emily placed her other hand over his, grounding him like the rocks that lent permanence to the rushing water. "Some might not, but I believe most will get it. We've all been through something, haven't we? Everyone feels lost sometimes. We're all just looking for a way to connect." Her confidence flickered like a flame, igniting a spark in Joe's chest. He had to trust her faith. What they had shared was real, raw and messy, but it was their truth, and perhaps, in sharing it, they might find others seeking refuge in similar experiences. As they wandered deeper into the festival, a sense of hope started to wash over him, easing the tension in his shoulders. They passed booths filled with colorful crafts, tantalizing food scents, and laughter bubbling from groups enjoying the festivities. The festival buzz had shifted, now buzzing with potential and possibilities. They stopped at a stand where artists painted vibrant murals. Emily leaned in to admire the colors swirling on canvas, and Joe watched how her eyes lit up at the beauty, how alive she seemed. She was ready to embrace the world, and he wanted to do the same. "Let us create our own masterpiece," he suggested, a grin breaking across his face. Emily looked at him, unguarded joy lighting her expression. "Really? You'd do that? Why not? We have nothing to hide anymore." His resolve felt stronger as the words tumbled out. He took a deep breath, finding the comfort of his newfound honesty. "Let us make something beautiful together." As they approached the canvas, the artist smiled and welcomed them. Joe reached for a brush, and he could feel Emily's enthusiasm energizing him. This was more than just paint, it was a symbol of what they were creating together. With each stroke of the brush, Joe felt the tension of self-doubt easing. They turned the canvas into a riot of colors, splashing blues, reds, and yellows, letting their hearts spill over. Every stroke was a story, every splash was a celebration of their journey, but as the colors blended and formed new shapes, Joe felt an unsettling thought creep back in. What if their new beginning wasn't as clean-cut as he hoped? What if the challenges they faced screamed louder than the applause? As they stepped back to admire their work, Joe's pulse quickened. He was terrified not just of what lay ahead, but of what hidden truths might still surface. The applause may have faded, but the journey was far from over. What deeper secrets did they still need to confront? Joe took a step back, his breath hitching as he scanned their chaotic masterpiece. The colors were vibrant, almost too vivid, each hue representing a piece of their shared story. He was proud, yet that knot of uncertainty in his stomach tightened even more. "What are we really doing here?" he muttered, more to himself than to Emily. Emily placed her hand on his shoulder, turning him gently to face her. "We're opening up, Joe. This is a celebration of us, of our truth." Her eyes held a conviction that made him feel lighter, if only for a moment. They lingered for a while, lost in the masterpiece they'd created. People began to approach, drawn by the color and enthusiasm. A little girl tugged at her mother's hand, beaming at them. "Can we paint, too?" she asked, her excitement bubbling over. Joe looked at Emily, suddenly nervous. "What if we don't do it right?" he whispered, his doubts creeping back in. "Who says there's a right way?" Emily replied. "Art is about expression." She waved the little girl over. "Come here. Let us add more colors." A small group gathered, brushes in hand, laughter blending with the lively festival background. Joe found himself swept up in the moment. As paint splattered and hands became stained, he felt the heaviness within him begin to lift. In the midst of all this, Emily leaned close and whispered, "See? Just like our story, it doesn't need to be perfect." She paused, her expression shifting to something more serious. "But we must remember why we are doing this. We can't forget the journey." He nodded, recalling the darkness they had faced, the isolation, the moments where they thought they couldn't share their truth. That memory was a shadow, an uninvited guest in this brilliant slice of life. "Yeah, I won't forget," he said quietly. "Let us keep adding layers," Emily suggested, her eyes gleaming with determination. They resumed painting, but Joe felt a sense of urgency looming over him. Each new stroke felt like a challenge, a battle against the nagging doubts. He could feel the other people, the little girl's laughter, the artists nearby watching them, watching him. What would happen when the novelty wore off? Would they still matter once the crowd dispersed? Suddenly, the laughter of the festival felt distant, muffled by his rising fear. "What if they see more than just our colors?" he asked, quickening his pace on the canvas, as if racing against time. "Then we show them all of it," she replied, her tone fierce. "The good and the messy. It's all part of us." She reached for a thick, black paint and added bold outlines around the vibrant swirls they had created. "We're not perfect, and that's okay." Joe stared at the canvas, taking in the way the colors worked together, colliding yet complementing each other. He glanced at Emily, her hair catching the wind, her spirit unfurling like the flags of the festival fluttering above. She was right, every part mattered, yet as he immersed himself in painting, changing colors, and adding shadow, he felt something darker underneath. What if all these revelations cracked open past wounds? What if the fallout from their confession was worse than being misunderstood? As they finished their mural, a sense of unity enveloped the growing crowd. Cheers erupted, and applause echoed once more, a symphony that filled the air. But for Joe, the applause was a dull roar, overshadowed by the questions swirling in his mind. Did we really leave it all behind? He murmured under his breath, his gaze drifting to the horizon where the sun dipped low. It was beautiful, a sight to behold, yet he couldn't shake the feeling that the true test was just beginning. Joe? Emily nudged him gently, trying to pull him back into the moment. We did this together. That's what matters. He forced a smile, but deep down, something inside him stirred uneasily. A voice whispered of hidden truths yet to be unveiled. With this new adventure beckoning, he couldn't help but wonder, what strength would they need to face the shadows that still lingered, waiting just beneath the surface? Joe stepped back, his heart racing as he soaked in the energy around him. Cheers and laughter filled the air, but he still felt a lingering weight. Emily noticed, of course. She always did. Her hand found his, squeezing gently, grounding him. We've made something beautiful, she said, her voice warm against the backdrop of their vibrant mural. Look at how they react. This is connection, Joe. He shifted his gaze from the canvas to the faces surrounding them. The little girl was laughing, streaks of paint decorating her cheeks. A couple nearby leaned in closer, intrigued, whispering to each other and pointing at the different colors. For a moment, the joy in their expressions lifted the fog in his mind. What if it's only surface deep? He whispered, the doubt still gnawing at him. What if they can't truly see us, what we've been through? Then we show them. Emily's voice was like a beacon. This is our chance to share that journey. The messy and beautiful parts. Maybe it helps someone else feel less alone. He watched as she turned back to the crowd, her infectious spirit drawing them in. Joe felt himself waver between his fear and her resolve. Could they really be so bold? A knot tightened in his stomach at the thought. As Emily welcomed more people to paint alongside them, he dove back into the colors. The weight from moments past began to lift as he mixed vibrant yellows and deep blues. Suddenly, paint on his brush felt like a release, a way to counter the uncertainties that plagued his heart. Hey, what are you two creating? A voice pulled him from his thoughts. It belonged to an older man, maybe in his 60s, with a paint-stained apron and a sparkle in his eye. He looked genuinely curious. It's a mural about our story. About what it means to be real, Emily replied, her enthusiasm spilling over. Joe glanced at her, finding strength in her passion. Wow, the man said, his voice rich with experience. Life is all about the stories we tell. They resonate beyond the canvas. You both look like you've got some powerful tales to share. Joe blinked, feeling a swell of emotion. Yeah, I guess we do, he admitted, the words escaping before he could stop them. But it's scary, too. What if they don't get it? Art speaks when words can't, he urged, nodding sagely. And sometimes you'll find that the pieces left unpainted tell the most profound stories. He gave Joe a knowing smile before drifting back into the crowd. The man's words settled inside him, creating ripples of possibility. Maybe he's right, Joe whispered to Emily, his voice trembling. Maybe our shadows can coexist with the light. Maybe it all matters more than we think. Emily's face lit up with understanding. Exactly. Let us add more layers, Joe. Let us not shy away from the darker colors, the shadows. They're part of our story too. As they painted, more people joined, filling the canvas with stories of their own. Adults reminisced, children giggled, and together they created a tapestry of emotions. Each stroke built a bridge, connecting strangers through the power of shared experience, yet even with this growing sense of community, Joe could feel the old wounds stir beneath the surface. Deep down, he wondered, what if revealing their truth provoked questions they weren't ready to answer? What if the past resurfaced in ways that would threaten the new bond they were forging right here, right now? Uncertainty knotted his stomach once more, but the fear was now mingling with a strange anticipation. Wasn't it better to unveil their truths rather than hide them in shadow? As dusk fell and the final colors brightened under the evening sky, Joe looked at Emily. She was alive with joy and determination, and he knew in that moment a deep sense of courage sparked within him. Perhaps this was the beginning of something even more astonishing, but just as hope ignited, an unexpected figure approached from the back of the crowd. It was a face from his past, someone he had never expected to see again. The warmth of the festival faded, replaced by a sudden chill in the air. Joe's breath caught in his throat. Would the encounter break everything they were building, or could it be the catalyst for the truth they had begun to embrace? The figure stepped nearer, and Joe's heart sank. A familiar face emerged from the shadow of the dusk, a face he thought he'd left far behind. It was Sarah, his sister, looking just as he remembered, but the years had etched lines of worry around her eyes. She hesitated just outside the crowd, glancing at the mural as if searching for something buried deep in the colors. "Joe?" Her voice cut through the laughter like a knife, raw and full of emotion. It took him a moment to respond, to separate the chaos of his emotions from the soothing atmosphere around him. What are you doing here?" He tried to keep his voice steady, but it quivered, betraying the mix of shock and vulnerability bubbling inside him. Emily turned at the sound of his voice, her eyes widening as she recognized the woman who had once shared childhood secrets and dreams with Joe. She took a step back, sensing this was a moment apart from their festival, a moment that could unravel the carefully constructed layers of joy. "I came to see you," Sarah said, her voice softening. "I saw the pictures online. The mural, it's beautiful. I felt like I had to be here." Joe's chest tightened. Memories from a world he thought he had closed off surged like a tidal wave. Funny how art had the power to resurface the things we thought we had buried. "You shouldn't have come," he said, words tumbling out in a rush. "Not here. Not now." "But I did," she replied, her voice resolute, yet trembling. "I want to understand, to know how you've been. After everything, I thought I could send a message, but it was never enough, Joe." He glanced at Emily, whose face reflected a mixture of concern and confusion. She had championed their mission, encouraging him to step into vulnerability, yet now, with the presence of Sarah, all those hidden fears clawed back. "What do you want, Sarah?" Joe asked, his voice a whisper. The crowd around them faded as the tension built. An artist's oasis turned into a battleground of memories. "I want to apologize," she said finally. "For leaving when you needed me. For not being there. I thought I was too broken to help, but seeing this mural, it made me realize how much I wanted to be part of your life again." Joe felt like he'd been knocked off balance. He searched her face, looking for a sign, a glimmer of the sister who had once stood by him through thick and thin. Could he really take another step into those turbulent waters after everything that had happened? Could he allow the past to slip back in, messy as it was? An uncomfortable silence stretched between them, heavy with years of unresolved feelings. The vibrant colors of the mural behind them flickered under the dimming light, illuminating the potential for healing wrapped up in unspoken words. Emily stepped closer, sensing the raw energy between the siblings. "Maybe this is the moment you need, Joe," she urged gently. "You can't paint over the past, but you can integrate it. Share what you've experienced." His breath caught in his throat again, and he felt the mesh of emotions clash. Hope battled with fear, love with resentment. Deep down, he knew what he needed to do, but could he truly face the truth? Just as he opened his mouth to speak, a shout erupted from the other side of the festival. "Look! The mural! It's coming to life!" Heads turned, faces illuminated with awe and excitement, leaving Joe and Sarah side by side in the swirling emotions of a crowd, lost in their own turbulent history. As he looked into her eyes, the struggle of uncertain forgiveness fell heavy on his heart. The question lingered intensely in the air: would he embrace the chance to mend their shattered bond, or would he allow fear to dictate the next stroke on his canvas? The night deepened, bringing with it the challenge of truth. Joe could feel the weight of decision pressing down, a choice that could either shatter or heal. What would he choose? The vibrant colors of the mural glimmered under the festival lights, reflecting the turmoil raging within Joe. Time seemed suspended as he stared into Sarah's hopeful eyes, a connection that had once been, now tangled in the heaviness of their shared past. Here was the fragment of his life he thought he had put away for good, standing before him, waiting like a specter from an unfinished story. "Joe?" Sarah's voice wavered, trembling as she stepped closer. "I never meant to hurt you. I didn't know how to cope. But I'm here, and I want to be part of your life again." He could hardly grasp the weight of her words. Part of him wanted to embrace her, welcome her back as if the years apart had never happened. But a stark voice whispered, warning him of the scars that might reopen. "It's not that easy, Sarah. You left when I needed you most." The crowd around them began to dissipate, laughter and music fading into the background, leaving an aching silence between the siblings, thick like the chill in the night air. Emily stood close, watching quietly, sensing the fragility of this moment. "I know," Sarah said softly. "But I want to come back. I want to heal together. I've changed, Joe. Life has taught me that family matters more than pride or pain." In the depths of her plea, Joe caught a glimpse of sincerity. He found himself wrestling with the truths he often avoided. Could he afford to take this risk? Could he allow Sarah to re-enter a life he'd worked hard to rebuild? The vibrant colors of their murals suddenly felt subdued compared to the darkness lingering in his heart. Each brushstroke told a tale, the great hues of joy, alongside the dark, muted tones of betrayal and regret. "Can I trust you?" he finally asked, the question trembling at the tip of his tongue. "You can," she whispered fervently, her eyes glistening with emotion. "But trust isn't given freely. It has to be earned again, and I'm willing to put in the work." Joe exhaled, the weight lifting just a fraction. For the first time in years, hope flickered like the stars beginning to dot the sky, a page in their story waiting to be written. "I want to believe you," he said, the tension easing from his heart, yet still raw. "But it's going to take time. It won't be easy. I don't know how to start." "Neither do I," Sarah admitted, the last semblance of tension slipping from her body. "But starting together feels like a step in the right direction." Joe felt a warmth rising in his chest. Maybe this was what vulnerability looked like, pointing the way toward reconciliation and healing. He turned to Emily, who nodded encouragingly. "You can't paint over the things that hurt you, Joe. But you can include them in the masterpiece." With a deep breath, he faced Sarah again. "Then let us paint this story together," he said. "Let us face our past while tackling the future." As he extended a hand toward Sarah, the weight of her absence seemed to lift. She stepped forward, arms trembling as they embraced. It was tentative at first but soon became sturdy, healing tension dissolving into the tender thread of connection forming anew. Laughter erupted from nearby festival-goers as Emily applauded the merging of the siblings, turning toward their mural that now shimmered brighter as if illuminated by newfound clarity. Together, they stepped back from the canvas, a work in progress, each layered color telling of struggles and vulnerabilities that had led them here. As the crowd began to gather once more, drawn to the scene of beauty and connection, Joe realized that their story echoed far beyond the canvas. It resonated within each person witnessing their union, a reminder of the need for connection, for healing. "Life is messy, isn't it?" he said softly to Emily, the corners of his mouth lifting slightly. She grinned widely. Yeah, but it's also bright, vivid, and beautiful, just like what you're creating here tonight. In that instant, Joe understood the lesson painted within those brushstrokes. Forgiveness, acceptance, and the ability to move forward were all parts of the landscape of life. With renewed courage, he turned to face the crowd, their faces now vibrant with anticipation and curiosity. We've painted our hearts. We've bared our souls. Now, let us embrace the truth of who we are together. He held Emily's hand tightly, then Sarah's. As they faced the crowd, their community, family, and friends, he felt the bindings of loneliness, regret, and loss slowly uncoil. Together, they stood as a beacon of courage, offering their stories for all to see, and as the festival buzzed with energy, the music swelled once more, echoing harmoniously in sync with Joe's heart, a promise reverberating through the night. Whatever lay ahead would be worth the journey. Together, now, it's your turn. Don't keep those stories inside. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support creative storytelling. Comment below with your thoughts, reactions, and the feelings this journey stirred in you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of backing our journey forward.